Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. So, introductions. I'm on, if you want to reach out to me, questions, comments, concerns, show ideas. So, if you have those, feel free to reach out to me either through email, Substack, X, and of course, fill up those comments on YouTube. It's greatly appreciated. And I do answer them, and I greatly appreciate them all. All right, so audio platforms that I'm currently on, and I'm going to expand to possibly working on that. That's a goal, to be on all the audio platforms. So Spreaker, of course, Spotify, Pandora, Deezer, Amazon Music, just to name a few. And iHeartRadio, just to name a few. All right, so this episode is all about the origin of coal. Getting a lump of coal, that is, for Christmas. Where that came from, what is that all about? And then, of course, I'm going to give my thoughts about it. And I'd like to know what you all think about the aspects of this story. If you're bad, you'll get a lump of coal, and how the impact that has, you think, on culture. So the best way is email, but as I listed earlier in my introduction, social media platforms such as Substack and X, and of course, comments on YouTube. It'd be greatly appreciated. And also, I have shorts out there, floating out there, and I'm going to work on more comedic shorts in the new year. So check those out too. All right, here we go. Do 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 do, boo biddy boo bidoo, do biddy bum biddy dee, dee 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 do do do, do biddy do dee dee, na 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 na. Scooby doo 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 doo, Scooby doo 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 doo, a doo doo doo, a doo doo doo, a da doo doo, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna start out with the AI generated response about coal, and then go from there as far as my thoughts too, and then go into depth about actual articles that are addressing this. So here we are. Okay, says origin of lumps of coal. The practice of receiving a lump of coal as a Christmas gift for misbehaved children has its roots in European folklore. Several theories contribute to the origin of this tradition. St. Nicholas and the poor man's daughters. According to the legend, St. Nicholas left a bag of gold coins in a stocking by the fireplace, leading to the tradition of leaving presents and stockings on Christmas Eve. The lump of coal tradition may have emerged as a way to punish naughty children, with the threat of coal and their stockings serving as a deterrent for good behavior. Chimney-born legends. So in Europe cultures, Christmas characters like Benefan, St. Nicholas, and Krumps enter homes via the chimney. And I had mentioned that about Krumps on episodes last week when I was talking about the aspects of Santa Claus and the aspects of that too. And so I just find it's very interesting about the aspects. I'm going to touch on this a little bit here, and then I'm going to go more about my, expel my thoughts even more after this segment. So about the aspects of European folklore, particularly with German, Norwegian, so forth, how the emphasis of ghoulish or extreme, to say the least, punishments for bad behavior, it was prevalent in fables for children, how that was a part of folklore, of the traditions of culture, and how that relates to how that links back into the aspect of American culture of how we, as far as the traditions of Christmas and so forth, how these different interweaving of other cultures influence what we see and what we think about the aspect of good versus evil, so forth, and our traditions. All right, so here we go. In Italy, Bonify delivers gifts, while in other cultures, these characters leave coal for naughty children. The chimney-based folklore may have influenced the association of coal with misbehavior. So in the 18th century, England, the first record instance of receiving a lump of coal as a Christmas gift dates back to the 18th century of England, as I already said, where coal was a luxury item only affordable for the wealthy. That's quite interesting. Wealthy individuals would give coal to their servants as gifts, which the servants would use to heat their homes during the winter month. And the aspect of how using something that's very resourceful for somebody as an aspect of thinking about their true needs. That's something how that turns that spins that aspect around about I'm saying the same thing over and over. Excuse me. That spins the narrative around about how coal is seen in the tradition of Christmas, and it's actually an act of goodwill. So I'm going to end by what it says with the AI-generated response, their conclusion. It says, while the exact origin of the lump of coal tradition remains unclear, it is evident that multiple factors have contributed to its evolution. So the threat of coal in a stocking served as a means of to encourage good behavior in children, and its association with chimney-born legends and historical practices has solidified its place in Christmas folklore. All right, so I'm going to read off some of these sources here. ehow.com, houseforfuel.co.uk, christmasmosaic.com, and blog.nms.ac.uk. All right, next segment is my thoughts. All right, so my thoughts about the origins and aspects of coal, finding up coal, how that translates and to what we know today. So I find it quite interesting, particularly with folklore, how that translates into adaptations across the globe, particularly in America. And so I'll put it like this. It's one of those sayings, how it says, what might seem strange for some is useful for others. So, case in point with Disney. Okay, going back to Disney. I had mentioned this about Disney before, but I'm going to reinstate it again for this purpose. So with Disney, Walt Disney particularly, which also begs another question about that. So, wanted to tell the stories, tell fable, folklore in a way that was presentable for children. So, for instance, the aspects of Snow White, the aspects of Pinocchio. Now, these stories are not what all intents and purposes with hear me talking my legal talk here. Anyway, they don't have the intention to be child friendly. So, what is my point? Where am I going with this? So here, case in point with lumps of coal. Now, and the Germanic, the Dutch, so on and so forth, with the aspects of how moral codes or moral compasses are taught through folklore. They elaborately go into depths and the details about the grim facts and harsh reality of doing something that's innate a visceral response of fear in order to keep the child in line. Now, and it also goes with the whole aspects of this, with how as time goes, looking at things from an outside point of view, how does that relate, or how does it correlate? Does that really help with the development of the child's moral obligation or the moral compass of how they achieve things? So with this said, it takes on a whole different interpretation when it's diluted and it translates into traditions as far as Christmas, with the aspects of doing little things, having little reminders for young children that you gotta do this to keep yourself in line. And so it's also important to understand this from this point of view of how that shapes a culture. So, with that being said, what are you saying by having the aspects of keeping children in line, and how that grows throughout time, and how that is popular? You know, if you don't be a good boy or good girl this year, you're going to get a lump of coal. These reminders of being good. And it also brings another question about the aspects of being good in general. I think it also begs a question too about the aspects of should children, and then the aspect of children in society and culture, and how children are seen in our society. Should you just see them as, just see this as a thing? Well, I'm just pointing out, of course, this is, putting a lot of detail, giving it a lot of attention, but it's something that, also like to bring a question about. This is also bring this question about society with the aspects of children and material possessions or material things. Now, it's all great, and I encourage that, the child should have all that they want and their heart's desire at Christmas. Of course, why not? Because that's, wonderful for the child's development and everything, going on. Now, other people have other points of views about that, but hey, that's not how I feel. But, excuse me, at the heart of the matter here, what I'm getting towards is, it also begs the question about being good for the sake of good, the difference between being good for the sake of good or being good just for a goal. And that's something to look at. So, with all that said, and there was a lot said there, I'd like to know what you all think too. And feel free to email me. That's the best way to reach me. But you can also follow me on X, find me on X, Substack, and of course, fill up the comments on Twitter. Be greatly appreciated. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the aspects of articles that go into depth about the origin of lumps of coal. And of course, this source that I'm reading from from will be provided for you in this episode. All right, so it's by ehow.com, and it's entitled Origin of Lumps of Coal for Christmas. So this was updated on November 22nd of 2022. So the Christmas store that children who have been bad throughout the year will get lumps of coal in their holiday stockings instead of presents has many possible origins. The difference between each origin story is cultural, varying between countries. Like most cultural rivalries, the answer to who did it first is going on is prolific in generations of storytelling. So regardless of who practiced the custom first, it's fun to consider all the possible variations of this interesting legend. And of course, that I covered urban legends before and the aspects of that, how the good competitive story. The whole point of me doing this, and this reiterates this too, compelling stories really have an impact on society and how people shape and think, whether you want to admit to that or realize this or not. It does have some sort of impact on how people think. All right, so coal and Christmas stockings in Sicily. So one of the many origin stories begin in Italy, where they believe that La Befanta, a witch who delivers presents instead of a Santa Claus. As the story goes, when Jesus was born, La Befanta was a bright star in the sky and gathered some toys and other presents to give the baby Jesus. But she couldn't find the stable. Every year she roams the land looking for Jesus and leaves toys for good children and coal for bad ones. These days, Italians use a candy called Carbano Dolce, Carbano Dolce, to turn the legend into a joke. The dark rock-like candy looks exactly like a lump of coal. Quite interesting. And that's quite interesting, too, with the aspect of allegory, with really tying that into the Christian faith, and how that has a lot of connotations with the aspect of what the reason and the season is for Jesus, and the aspect of Jesus and how Jesus is impactful to Christian believers and impactful to society. And that's quite interesting to interlace that with another level of a folklore, and to reiterating the aspect of that, again, that moral compass, keeping that moral code in line about values and how faith can reshape that aspect of values and keep people on the center line, and how this fable gives a whimsical interpretations about that, of good spirits and goodwill, and the aspects of being morally apt. That's nice. So lumps of coal and clogs in Holland. Here we go. Some believe the lumps of coal story began in Holland in the 16th century. Before Christmas, children would put their clogs by the fireplace long before stockings were used. When a child was bad, they got a lump of coal. But if they were good, they received Christmas gifts of small toys, cookies, or even candy. So here we go in England. And I mentioned this briefly about the aspect of how coal is turned into a fact of being beneficial. You'd say being I don't know why this term is phasing me. A term of endearment there, or act of endearment there. So, in the 19th century, most of Europe was powered by coal, and most household furnaces were coal burning. A pan of coals would often be kept under the bed to generate heat in the middle of the night. In England, while the children of wealthy families got candy and toys as stocking stuffers, those who were poor, believed to have been made poor by God as punishment for their family's bad deeds, would get coal as a Christmas present if they were lucky. Now, okay. Finding this out, so that really, really, really begs a lot of questions here. So that's quite sad too, with the getting into the impact of, okay, on the surface, and that's to see here again, finding these things out. That's why it's good to dig deeper and find these things, research these things, because I'm very glad that I found this. So this begs the question about imperialism, particularly with imperialism within religion. So are you saying that God really sees things from this point of view where, the only reason why you're poor, or the only reason why people are going through this is because they're bad people, which is not the case. Not everything is black and white. There's so many people who go through terrible things who are wonderful people, and then why is it that they're going through that and they're suffering? And it also goes that layer where their suffering is meaningless because they deserve it. So that also begs that question too about the aspect of the moral code of empathy, with elitism, and it's only you only see faith as an aspect of exchange of something, or exchange of where you fall in line morally. That there's nothing in between. It's just only a narrow interpretation of people's aspects of their will and their free will, and then how they live their lives is there's only black and white tones to that, and that's very odd. But that also, again, that begs the question of something that's very true within the aspects of how, and it's quite interesting with the aspects of English. This is told to English because this is the whole reason why America is the beacon of hope, the beacon of light. Even though some people want to say, America's nothing and America's shameful to be a part of, or shameful to be American. I'm proud to be American here, and I'm glad it's getting back to where it needs to be. But my point here, where I'm going towards, why our founding fathers escaped England. This is part of the reason. It's more rearing its ugly head, among other things. They escaping imperialism, particularly with religion. My religion is better than yours because of this and that. You are this because you are suffering so much because you are not of pure, or you are not of this, or you are not of a devout following. So that's why you're so at such a lowly state in your life and stuff. So with that being said, that's quite interesting with that connection of coal. This extra layer of information of finding out about coal of Christmas and the origin of that and the folklore of that in England. So the nobleman and the bounty of gold. Some believe the story that a proud but poor nobleman had 3 daughters ready to marry. So this goes to St. Nicholas. So the problem was he had no dowry to give him. So St. Nicholas secretly gave the family enough money so the daughters could start their lives with their new husbands. He did this by placing the money in stockings that were drying by the fireplace. When word spread about this miracle, everyone started hanging their stockings by the fire in hopes that the secret benefactor would visit them too. He did visit those houses on Christmas, but for those St. Nicholas knew to be bad, he left a lump of coal instead of a bounty of gold. These traditional putting oranges or clementines into Christmas stockings is also alleged to have come from this story. The round orange fruit symbolizing gold coins that was said to have originally been left as a gift in the stocking by St. Nick. And so I'm going to end on this. All these stories and the aspects of lump of coal. This gives another layer to our traditions. And so our traditions are what society holds their values towards. And it speaks a lot about what is stable or not stable, and for the aspects of how people think about one another and how people view themselves and the tapestry of humanity. And so with this extra layer about the origin and the link of coal, I think going back to talking about these folklores and getting more in-depth analysis about it gives another view of how these little things are interlaced in our traditions, of how that reminds us about what we think generally about how good and bad works and our forces of moving ourselves or carrying ourselves in society. It's quite interesting. All right, so this reaches the end of the Harboring Light. And again, feel free to email me, and all the social links and, of course, comments on YouTube will be, the link for YouTube would be provided for you. Comments would be greatly appreciated too. All right, so tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care. And I'm going to keep saying this. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and of course, Happy New Year. Bye-bye.